Alright, so let's jump straight into it. I'm going to show you how to use 3-point lighting in your scenes and how it can help your characters or objects look a lot better. And you don't have to stick to characters either. This setup works great for product animations, environment details, or pretty much anything you want to show off clearly. So what is 3-point lighting? It's a classic lighting setup that uses 3 main light sources: the key light, the fill light, and the rim light, sometimes called a backlight. It's used in photography, filmmaking, and of course 3D rendering. And the main idea is to add depth, shape, and contrast to your subjects so they don't look flat or lost in the scene. For 3D artists, this setup is super useful because it gives you control over how your subject is lit from different angles, making your renders look more professional and intentional. And what's great for us as 3D artists is that we don't need any physical lighting gear like in photography or filmmaking. We can just add a few light sources or even simple planes with emission and adjust them in just a few minutes, and it's fast, flexible, and totally customizable. So in this video I will walk you through the basic examples of key lights, fill lights, and backlights, what they do and how they affect your scene. And after that we will look at how to mix and match different types of lighting, because the cool thing is there isn't just one way to light your scene, but before we get creative with it you need to understand the basics and how to use them well. So let's start with the key light. The key light is your main light source. It's usually the brightest light in the scene and it's the one that defines the look of your subject the most. On a character, this is the light that hits the face directly, and for non-human objects, it's the light that shows off the front or main detail of your model. So in my scene, I've set up 3 different key lights, one at a 45-degree angle, one from the top, and one directly from the front. We will look at them one by one. So first let's check out the 45-degree key light. I have just enabled it and you can see it's positioned slightly above and to the side of the character. This setup is really common in cinematography, where it's often called Rembrandt lighting. Now, what should you know about this light? Like I mentioned earlier, the key light should be the strongest light in your setup. In this case, I've set mine to 45 watts. It's hitting the character from the side, which creates clear shadow contrast on the opposite side of the face. One more thing, shadow softness. You can control how soft or hard the shadows are by adjusting the size of your light source. Smaller lights give you hard shadows, while larger ones create softer shadows. I don't want my shadows to be too harsh, so I'm leaving the scale of the light source as it is. And also keep in mind that increasing the strength of the light can also affect the sharpness of the shadows, so look for a balance between size and intensity. Now let's add a fill light to this scene. So what's the purpose of the fill light? Its main job is to soften the shadows created by the key light. It doesn't compete with the key light, it just fills in the dark areas a little so they are not completely black. And typically you will place it on the opposite side of the key light, aimed at the shadowed part of your subject. And also you need to remember, the fill light should always be much dimmer than your key light. We are not trying to flatten the face or wash out the depths, we just want to bring out a bit more detail in the shadows without losing the nice contrast. So I have just enabled my fill light. Right away you will notice the shadow side of the face is still dark but not nearly as harsh. The light is doing its job, lifting the shadows gently without overpowering the scene. You still get the depth and form, but it feels a bit more natural now. This light uses the same type of source as the key light, but I've made it larger in size and set the strength to just 12 watts compared to the 45 watts of the key light. And the larger size also helps soften the light, make it more diffuse and subtle. And if you want to pin your fill light directly to your object or character, here's a quick tip. Go to the Constraints tab, add a track to constraint, and select your object as the target. This way the light always points at your subject's origin point, which helps keep the lighting consistent as you work. Now I'll toggle the fill light on and off a few times so you can see the difference it makes and how it affects the shadows in the scene. And I have also added a second type of fill light in this scene, but this one isn't actually a light source. It's just a simple plane that acts as a reflector. It has no texture and I've set its color to plain white at maximum brightness. Even though it's not emitting any light itself, it reflects the light from our key light really well, helping to brighten up the shadows on the other side of the face in a soft, natural way. And to hide this reflector from the camera, just go to the Object Properties, find the Ray Visibility tab and uncheck Camera. That way the camera won't see the plane, but its light bouncing effect will still be active in your render. Now I'll switch between two fill setups, one with the actual light source and one with just the reflector, so you can see how each affects the scene. And also you can control how much light the plane bounces just by scaling it up or down. The larger the plane, the more surface area it has to reflect light, just like you're seeing here. And now let's talk about the backlight. The backlight's main job is to separate your subject from the background. It helps define the edges and add depth to your scene so your character doesn't blend into the backdrop. And typically it's placed at about 45-degree angle behind the subject, aimed to light up areas like shoulders and the back of the head. And let me go ahead and enable the backlight in this scene, so right away you will notice how it starts to highlight the chin and the jacket, giving them a subtle glow that makes the character pop from the background. Now technically this light has more power in my scene than the key light, but when I disable both the key and fill lights, you will see that the backlight does not overpower the scene. It's not meant to light the face, just to edge out the silhouette, so I'm going to leave it as it is. With all the lights on, we now get a really balanced look. The subject is clearly visible from the front, the shadows are controlled, and the backlight gently outlines the figure, adding a sense of depth and dimension that makes the whole render feel more professional and polished. Now let's talk about a few variations of the backlight. You can move the light slightly to the side and aim it across the back of your character. This setup is called a rim light. So instead of just lighting the back of the head and shoulders, it will create a nice edge around the jawline and chin, giving the character a more dramatic and stylized look. And this version works really well for portraits or cinematic shots. Another variation is the hair light. This is placed directly behind the subject, usually higher up, aimed at the top of the head and shoulders. It creates a soft halo effect which adds a touch of separation and elegance, especially useful for characters with detailed hair or silhouettes. Now I will disable the key and fill lights so you can see exactly how the backlight looks on its own. And by the way, right now I've got only two backlights active in the scene, and as you can see, the overall look still works really well. This kind of lighting setup can actually be useful on its own, especially in product animations or reveal shots, where you just want to highlight the edges and let the object emerge from the shadows, and the strong rim light around the sides adds a clean and dramatic feel to them. And I'm mentioning this because now we start experimenting with different lighting combinations. You might find that a minimal setup like this already gives you the look you want, and if it looks good, you don't always need to overcomplicate it. Sometimes just two well-placed lights can be enough. Now that you understand the basic 3-point lighting setup, let's take things a step further. I'm going to show you a few additional lighting placements that you can try out in your own scenes. So let's explore some of the other options and see how they can transform your render. Now let's take a look at the top key light. I've actually prepared two variations and we will go through both to compare how they affect the scene. This type of lighting is often used in more dramatic or intense setups. That is because lighting from directly above creates strong shadows under the eyes, nose and chin, which adds a sense of mystery, tension or even isolation. Right, I'll turn on the first top key light now. Like before, I've set this one to 45 watts and it's placed right above the character's head. Immediately you can see that the upper part of the face is well lit, while the lower part, the neck and chin, is in the shadow. It creates a more focused, moody effect, and it's great for moments where you want the audience to concentrate on the scene. In this setup, we definitely need some help with those heavy shadows. So instead of adding another light source, I'm using a mesh plane as a reflector, just like in our earlier fill light example. And once I enable it, you will notice a big difference. The shadows under the chin and on the neck start to lift, softening the look and making the whole scene feel more balanced. Now let's enhance the depth a little more by adding a backlight. As soon as I switch it on, you can see the edges of the neck and shoulders light up. That contouring helps separate the character from the background, making the shape stand out. How strong you want this backlight to be is totally up to you. If you increase its power, the outline becomes more pronounced, but the overall scene gets brighter too. To balance that, you can always dial down the fill light or shrink the reflector, which helps keep your highlights in check. As you can see here, once it's all adjusted, the lighting setup looks really clean and cinematic. Now for the second key light setup, I've switched to using a spotlight instead. The spotlight gives you a more focused beam of light compared to an area light. It doesn't spread as much, which makes it easier to control where the light hits and where it doesn't. It's great for drawing attention to a specific part of your subject or for creating more dramatic directional light. In this case, I wanted the light to spread a bit more, so I increased the radius of the spotlight to soften the fall off. At the same time, I boosted the intensity quite a bit. This one is set to 200 watts, since spotlights tend to need more power to fill the scene properly. Just like before, I'm using a reflective mesh plane as my fill light. For the backlight, I've kept it simple. It's positioned to highlight the neck area and jawline, giving the character that nice clean edge that separates them from the background. Now when we combine everything together, the key light, reflective fill and the backlight, you will notice that the overall look has less light scatter, meaning the light stays more directional and contained. Personally, I find this option more visually appealing, especially for stylized or moody scenes. And of course, feel free to adjust the size or strength of your fill light depending on how soft or contrasty you want the final result to be. Now let's move on to another lighting setup, this time with the key light placed directly in front of the character. This kind of front-facing key light is often used in beauty or cosmetic advertisements, where the goal is to flatten out shadows and give the skin a smooth, even appearance. It reduces contrast, making every detail visible without harsh shadows. You will also see this kind of setup used in some product photography, where clarity and even lighting are more important than drama or mood. Since this key light already covers most of the character evenly, we don't need much from the fill light, but we will add one anyway to fine-tune the shadows. I've placed the fill light slightly off to the side rather than directly next to the key light. This helps wrap the light around the character a bit more, softening any remaining shadows, especially under the chin or near the shoulders. A fill light in this position also adds a touch of dimension, so your subject doesn't end up looking too flat or overexposed. Now for the backlight. In this case, it's more like a rim light, since it's positioned slightly behind and to the side of the character. You will notice how it creates a nice highlight along the jawline and the edge of the face, which helps carve the subject out from the background. If I isolate the rim light and turn everything else off, you'll see it really emphasizes the shape and silhouette of the head and shoulders, something that's especially useful in stylized portraits or to add a cinematic touch. Alright, so that's it for today. As you've seen, don't be afraid to mix and match your lighting setups. I've been randomly enabling and disabling different light sources here, and you can see how each change completely transforms the mood and focus of the scene. Some artists use only 2 lights, or sometimes even just one to get a specific effect. It all depends on the style you are going for. Whether you are working on a product animation, a character render, or just trying to improve your lighting game in Blender, these setups give you a solid foundation to build on. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.